Stephen A., I'm starting with you, though, on this one.
Hey, Molly?
Yeah.
Molly, I just like to say something. I just want to recognize outstanding work when I see it. It is not easy to be last place in the NFC East, but our Giants have done it. And I think that needs to be recognized. It's a hard thing to do, but they're alone in last place.
You're right. If you're going to lose, just lose hard.
Molly, may I ask you a question? Why are you clapping over that ridiculous comment? I mean, you know, the fact of the matter is, how hard is it to be last? All you have to do is you could do nothing in
the
last.
NFC East.
I mean, if anything, we should be insulted that the Giants actually put forth the effort to be last. It doesn't take anything to be last. Nothing.
You know what? Do you know what 2020
I didn't look at it that way.
2020.
I didn't look at it that way. It took effort.
Everything's sad about 2020 in my life.
I tell you this. Let's move on because I want to save all this time for the Cowboys. Let's do that.
Okay, only if you're going to be Southern Steve. Otherwise, I really don't want to hear from you.
Well, you know, I reckon you're right. I reckon you might have a point there. I'll think about it. I'll think about it.
All right, Stephen A., talk to me. Does the NFC East winner even deserve to host a playoff game based on these pathetic records?
Well, hell no. But in fairness to the pathetic, sorry, moribund Cowboys because of the most awful defense in the National Football League. By the way, just as an aside, third last in yards allowed, second to last in rushing yards allowed, absolutely last in points allowed. I just had to get that out for Marcus Spears. I mean, I just had to do that for the brother. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys are so horrendous.
Go ahead with your comment. Everybody already know all that.
I understand all of that. I understand all that, but forgive me, man. I just got a bit distracted when I saw some of the numbers, just reminding myself of it. Having said all of that, I want to be very clear about my position. I remember back in 2010, remember the famous beast quake when Marshawn Lynch damn near ran over the New Orleans Saints' entire defensive team en route to a 67-yard touchdown run, a game they ultimately won. The Seattle Seahawks were 7-9. Not only did they win their division with a 7-9 record, because of it, they had home field advantage, and the New Orleans Saints, who were a Super Bowl contender, 11-5 at the time, ended up losing on the road, having to play against that 12th man in Seattle. They lost 41-36. What's problematic for me about teams with losing records, I think the best records should have home field advantage. I don't like the fact that if you have a losing record, you should make the playoffs. In my world, I don't think anybody with a losing record should be a postseason team. That's just me personally. But in the event that you feel the necessity to give them a playoff berth, damn sure don't let them have home field advantage. How do you deserve home field advantage because your division is pathetic? As a result, it allowed you to win even though you had a losing record and still get to host a home playoff game. I think that is a rule that is utterly ridiculous that the NFL should eradicate quick, fast, and in a hurry. There's no excuse to have that rule. Get rid of it now, here, period. They shouldn't have home field advantage. I would prefer that they don't even make the playoffs, but if you got to make the playoffs, but you have a losing record, at the very least had a decency not to make it so you get home field advantage too. That's just an insult to competitive play as far as I'm concerned. It disregards regular season efforts by a plethora of folks in the NFL that actually had the decency to have a winning record and resemble somebody that's worthy of a postseason berth. That's how I would go with it. Make sure they, at the very least, they don't have home field advantage.
I like that a lot. In other words, you don't do realignment or anything like that. You don't just go by the best records. But if you don't have a winning record, if you're below 500 at least, you shouldn't have home field even if you win the division. I agree. This NFC East is pathetic. Last season, I remember, like by late November, early December, they maybe had 10 or 12 wins outside the division. As a division, they had 10 or 12 wins outside the division. And this year, they're on pace to do worse than that. What, they got 2 wins outside the division now? They're on pace for 8 wins? The entire division? This is ridiculous. When you think about Peterson playing for the tie, or at least winding up with the tie, you're like, okay, you know, a tie in football, great. You know, actually, that might be the difference winning the division. If they wind up with 6 wins and a tie, they could win this division. That's how bad it is. To me, the question is why. Right? Like, you can break it down. Dan Snyder has been a disaster. Jerry Jones can't check his ego. The Giants, I think, are reflexively conservative and therefore not forward enough looking. And they have a bad GM who's failed miserably in his time there. And the Eagles, who've won a Super Bowl recently, have invested way too much money in an underperforming quarterback and have been ravaged by injury. And like a lot of Super Bowl teams, they've seen assistants leave. It's hard to keep that group of coaches together, and I think that has something to do with it too. But it is just like a perfect storm of misery in the NFC East. It's as though, like the rule in soccer, they should be demoted to another league right now because they're offering the NFL very little.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. And I'm with Stephen A. No way in hell any of them should host a playoff game. I don't think we see in the future any of them reeling off wins. Obviously, Dallas has a pretty favorable schedule coming up as far as other teams that are bad, but they are as bad as those other teams that they're about to play, except on offense. Listen, this is embarrassing. Not only to a guy that played in this division for a long time, it's not even built right. And the focus shifting to the Cowboys. All this conversation, and every year I come on here and me and Stephen A. talk about the Cowboys and I try to defend them. And you know one thing I realized? I haven't picked them to win a damn thing since I started at this job. Because honestly, there is no belief that they are going to put together the correct team and make the right decisions in order to be a legit Super Bowl contender. I've looked and I've scoured at how this team could be this bad. And the bottom line is, guys, they don't have the players, man. When we talk about this defense and we look at the roster on this defense, they got a few guys in spots that are making plays. I think Diggs is going to emerge as one of the best corners in football eventually. DeMarcus Lawrence is not playing up to his contract, but I think he can get it right. Aldon Smith been on the streets for 4 years, and he's the best defensive player that Dallas has. So they sold everything to score 38 points, and they sold everything to give up 40. That's where they are. You look at Philly, and I'm with Max. Y'all, look, I believe Carson Wentz has enough talent to be considered the elite guy. But that's talent. He hasn't played that way. He had one season where he played in the conversation of being that guy, and we attribute that to all of the conversation going forward with Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz played a good game and kind of revived himself. That still wasn't elite $100 million quarterback play. And then, obviously, we know what's going on in Washington with Ron Rivera. We still trying to figure out if Haskins is going to be a quarterback. And the Giants terrible. And everybody knows that. So when you look at this division, you should not make any other team. Let's for example, NFC South, right? We look at if Tampa wins that division and New Orleans gets second, do you know the Saints might have to go to Dallas or Philly to play a game, and they could be a team that wins 12, 13 games? That's not far-fetched for the Saints to win 11 at minimum. And we're talking about them having to travel. I'm with Stephen A. The NFC East shouldn't even be allowed in the playoffs, let alone have somebody come to those facilities and play. And the only good thing out of it is they can get home quicker after they lose the first playoff game.
Max, Molly, can I get an amen? Way to go, Spears.
Preach,
Way to go.
Master.
Way to go.
Preach.
Yeah,
Stephen A. You know me, right? I will defend the Cowboys when I think you're wrong, but I also will get after them when I think you're right. And when they are showing what they cannot do. I'm not going to be like Mike Irvin and come on here and make excuses. There are no excuses. They are horrible on defense, period.
Stephen A. should get his behind in a pew.
Do y'all know that Michael Irvin's got some new podcast? And he asked me to come on as his first guest. And do you know that man spent 11 minutes trying to defend his Cowboys? You have any idea how disgusting that was?
How much sweating was there? That's what I want to know.
11 minutes trying to defend the Cowboys.
Nearby.
I wonder about it. Say what, Molly?
By the way, look at how many elite
nearby?
teams.
How much
Look at how many.
was there?
I don't know about that, man. I couldn't
the
hear your
NFC
question,
East,
Molly.
the real problem is, guys,
Yeah.
the brain power is missing in the NFC East. If you look at the way these teams are run from the front office, how many elite teams in the NFL draft a running back in the top 10? Zero? Is there any that drafts it? 50% of the teams in the NFC East have drafted, and they're great players, but they're drafted 2, drafted 4, drafted way higher than elite teams draft running backs.
I don't view the Eagles that way.
No, I agree. That's the one exception. That's the one exception. Injuries, loss of coaches, and Carson Wentz underperforming. But even they are not good, and they're 1-2-1, and they're the only example of a team that's not run, idiotically.
We haven't had a repeat champion in the NFC East since the Donovan McNabb, Andy Reid days, so we know that was a long time ago, 01 to 04. I think FPI does project your Cowboys to win it, though, at an 8-8 record.
They all suck.
All right. Bye, Marcus. We'll see you on NFL Live for you.